His militant activities within the movement made him a target of the colonial machinery. On October 22, 1952, KIMATHI was involved in allegedly organizing a mass oathing ceremony on the banks of the Gura River. This ceremony was attended by thousands of recruits. Nderi Wangombe, the Nyeri district senior chief, got wind of what was happening. Fatally, Nderi decided to intervene, but to his dismay, he realized too late that he had been lured into a death trap. Nderi was summarily executed by KIMATHI's men.
Thus it goes without saying, a perverse traitor of households, a lustful fool corrupted easily with gold. For favors, ranks and prestige, even his mother he sold. For a dismal title of Chief Nderi of Nyeri, to petty thieves and invaders like Muranga's senior chief, Njiri, mortgaged a noble nation for vanity and fame. A stray dog, ignorant of honor or filial piety. A homegird with shit and vomit on his cursed name. By collaborating with the Britons, the fool to his name attracted calamity. At Gura River, machetes were what worked his trunk asunder. Mau Mau forces tower high for uprooting this evil murderer, a laughing stock for all ages. The villain's death even today provokes shame and bitter grudges.
KIMATHI became a marked man after this incident, and to avoid constant harassment, he went to exile in Tetu, where he was shortly arrested by Chief Mohoya's homeguards. At the chief's camp, he corrupted a homeguard and later disappeared into the night. KIMATHI officially entered the Nyandarua forest in December 1952. He was now 32 years old and had already met, married and had children with Mukami. The British declared war on Kenyan Africans on 20th October 1952. This was followed by the arrest of the most key Mau Mau Central Committee leaders in Operation Jock Scott. Among others who were arrested were more than 100 KAU leaders, including the Kapenguria Six. It is in this declaration of a state of emergency in Kenya by the colonial regime that further drove Mau Mau underground. It is during this period of fermenting that Mau Mau leadership was strengthened and restructured so that the Central Committee was transformed to the Kenya War Council, and the Group of 30 was enlarged and name changed to the Provincial Central Committee, the PCC. The Mau Mau War Council had 12 members from Kikuyu, Embu, Meru and Ukambani districts. Jesse Kariuki, John Mungai, James Buta and Charles Wamba were some of the best-known members of the council. The Mau Mau War Council was set up so as to organize mass oathing to collect intelligence and weapons. Due to the constant harassment of Africans by colonial agents in Nairobi, the Mau Mau Central Committee headquarters were moved from the Kiburi House to Mathare Valley for security reasons. At about the same time, another organ of the movement came into being. The People's Supreme Court was its name. The court consisted of 3 political leaders and 3 military leaders. The People's Supreme Court, the PSC, was a judicial organ where all legal matters were handled. Perpetrators of crimes were tried and judgments passed. Once in place, the courts were incorporated to the administrative structure of the Central Committee from district down to the village level. Unlike many cowardly KAU moderate leaders who, despite having intelligence of their impending arrest one day in advance and who decided to stick around aimlessly, KIMATHI and other gallant military braves courageously took arms and defiantly began to wage war for independence against the British. Once in the forest, Kimathi joined other military leaders like Generals Mwariama, Batabatu, Madenge, Matinjagwo, and China. In these early days, Kimathi assisted General Madenge in building and strengthening the Land and Freedom armies in both Nyandarua and Mount Kenya fronts. He helped found the Kariaini military camp, which later acted as the headquarters of all forest battalions. Due to his high literacy level, good organizational skills, and his indefatigable commitment to the nationalist cause of the movement, Kimathi was appointed the Secretary of the Land and Freedom Army by the Mau Mau War Council and promoted to the rank of General on 20th March 1953. His forest pseudonym was General Russia before he was given the name Matemo by the War Council in 1954. His duties in these early days were to draft the rules and regulations governing all military camps in the forest, maintaining contact with the Nairobi War Council, inspecting army camps in both war fronts, keeping contact with district and locational leaders, developing war strategies and procurement of arms, food and medicine. Due to the nature of his work and strong organizational and leadership skills, Kimathi gained the admiration of many passive wing leaders both in towns and military leaders in both war fronts. On the night of March 20th, 1953, two monumental raids took place simultaneously, namely the Naivasha raid under General Mbaria Kaniu, assisted by General Muraya Mbudhia of Mburungebo Army, which operated in the Rift Valley, and the legendary Lari raid, where more than 90 home guards were summarily executed by the Kenya Inorero Army, which operated in the Kiambu area. Home guards was a term used by the Mau Mau to denote fellow Africans who betrayed their country for both vulgar and private gains. It refers to Africans who picked up arms and fought against Mau Mau nationalists. The Home Guards were considered to be traitors of their country by the militant nationalists. They were generally referred to as Datashia Bururi, barons of the land, or Kamatimu, the spear bearers. It is these two initial raids that triggered and laid foundation for what was to be the beginning of more coordinated raids in these early days of the struggle. Greatly impressed by these successful raids, Kimathi, with the consent of Madenge and the blessings of the War Council, invited all forest armies to a conference in April of 1953 for the purpose of celebrating these two great victories at Githogi guerrilla camp in Murang'a. These marked the beginning of coordinated efforts of all scattered sections of the forest armies in both Nyandarua and Mount Kenya fronts. It was in this conference that a central command was formally established in the forest with the formation of a new body called the Supreme War Council, the SWC. General Madenge was elected as its chairman and commander-in-chief of all the Kenyan Land and Freedom Army forces in both war fronts, and General Mbarai Kaniu his deputy. Kimathi was made the Supreme War Council secretary, while General China was retained as the chief commander of all armed forces in the Mount Kenya war front. War strategies were evolved and new administrative structures developed at the Githogi conference in order to make the movement's activities coherent. Between April and 12th of June 1953, all raids which had been planned at this conference were executed throughout the Rift Valley, Central and Nairobi provinces, and these were the following. The Othaya raid of 27th May 1953, which was led by General Madenge. Kairodhi and Kariaini raids on 27th May of 1953, led by General Washanga, while General Gikonyo Kanyungu and General Gishohingero raided Musharage Home Guard Post. General Kahiu Itina raided the Gatumbiro Home Guard Post, while Generals Kago Ihura, Matinjagwo and Field Marshal Kimathi raided the Ndakaine Home Guard Post. General Muhammad Madhu was busy subduing the British militias during the Lukenya raid on the night of August 16, 1953.
Madena, ona menya maro menge, na tokiwate totige maka inya urage rakoinge, na tokiwate totige maka inya urage rakoinge. Netwo mereirie Madena, ona menya maro menge, na tokiwate totige maka
At the beginning, the war effort under General Madenge ran smoothly, but as antagonism between the British and Kenyans in the war front intensified, it became clear to the War Council that a new military leader was desperately required to take over the revolutionary efforts to the next level. Due to the failure of General Madenge as an effective military leader of the Land and Freedom Army, KIMATHI was instead proposed and elected as the preferred leader and commander-in-chief of all the Land and Freedom Army forces by the Kenya War Council and by thousands of other patriots at Muathe. To the position of Field Marshal, KIMATHI was elected. This was on August 16, 1953. This was thanks to his exceptional martial tactics, excellent organizational skills and bravery that he had portrayed in the battlefields. The immediate result of this was the dissolution of the Supreme War Council, which was headed by General Madenge. The Kenya Defence Council was then formed in its place, KIMATHI as its president. General Masharai wa Kimemia of Murang'a was made the deputy, General Kahio Itina the treasurer, and General Gadhitu wa Waithaka as the secretary general. General China was retained as the chief commander of all Mount Kenya armies. His generals on that front were Tanganyika, Kariba, Roi, Mwariama, Simba, Martin, Baimunge, Aga Khan, Abasweni, Kamwamba, Githe and Gatunga. The KDC later formed an executive committee composed of 12 members. Some of the well-known members are Generals Kibira, Gatu, Kago, Matenjagwo, Muraya Mbuthia, Ndungu Gisheru, Mbaria Kaniu, Nyoro Kirago, and Kimbo Mutuku. General Madenge was dropped from the top leadership of the Land and Freedom Army after he declined to attend the Muathe Congress and his latter refusal to submit to the decision of the War Council. This was the beginning of a serious fallout between Madenge and KIMATHI. Due to the increasing conflict between the Land and Freedom Army and the British gangs, mercenaries and militias under the command of a top British colonial military agent, a self-styled General Erskine, KIMATHI, assisted by the Kenya Defence Council Executive Committee, decided to form two other operational bodies under the KDC for tactical reasons. This was also to assist the KDC in its military operations. Therefore, the Mau Mau National Archive and the Kenya Young Stars Association were founded. The Mau Mau National Archive was a bureau of research and documentation of the nation's history where all battles fought and other revolutionary activities were recorded by field secretaries. The Kenya Young Stars Association involved itself with the nurturing of young politicians who would in the near future take over the national leadership roles once the Britons were defeated. The Kenya Young Stars Association consisted of historians and political theoreticians. It was in the same spirit of making the Land and Freedom Army a formidable fighting force to reckon with that on August 16, 1953, the 8 Land and Freedom Armies, their leaders and the areas of operations were identified, namely the Itumandemi Battalion. This operated in Nyeri under the leadership of Generals Kahiu Itina, Kitura, Jericho, Gisheru Ndungu, Ndiritu Dhuita and Abdallah. The Kenya Inoro Battalion. This operated in Kiambu, Ukambani and Narok regions under the leadership of Generals Waruinge, Ole Kisio, Ole Gapian, Nkayak Ole Gadatwa, Serebe Ole Nkere, Nubi, Arap Chuma, Gishinga, Makimei, Washira, Gadhera, Aga Khan and Vido. Mai Madadi Army. This operated in Mount Kenya Forest under the leadership of Generals China, Tanganyika, Roi, Ashira, Kasam, Kubukubu, Mwariama, Simba, Martin, Baimunge, Gatunga, Batabatu, and Githe. The Mburu Gebo Battalion. This operated in the Rift Valley under the leadership of Generals Kimbo, Gateru, Muraya Mbuthia, and Baria Kaniu. The Kenya Revelation Battalion. It operated in Nyeri countryside under the leadership of Generals Kariba, Ndaya, Mukura, and Kamami. The Kikuyu Iregi Battalion. This one operated in Murang'a under the leadership of Generals Matenjagwo Ng'ang'a, Kago, Ihura, Nyoro, Karuri, Gikonyo Kanyungi, and Gishohi Ngero. The Town Watch Battalion, which operated in all urban centers under the leaderships of Generals Enoch Mwangi, Mohamed Mathu, Mwangi Toto, Ogutu, Kariuki Chotara and Kareithi, a Gikuyu and Mumbai Trinity Army. This one composed of all individual Kenyans who sympathized and supported the Mau Mau movement in any way possible, and the best known supporter was Chief Mukudi of Western Kenya. General China later formed a 9th Battalion named the Heka Heka on the Mount Kenya front for tactical reasons. Its generals were Abasweni and Montgomery. Once the 8 armies were identified, Kimathi, assisted by the 12 members of the KDC Executive Committee, worked tirelessly to consolidate the armed movement in the forest, reserves and the towns.